Hello, welcome to week 10, final week. We are going to be working on our interview and company overview assignment this week. You have a final takeaway discussion, and then next week, we all have a discussion on debrief and takeaways. For the blended class, we would normally meet in person for about 30 minutes. And as I thought through it, it just really didn't seem like a good idea to make everyone drive out here and meet for 30 minutes when we could just have an online discussion. So that discussion for both online and blended will be due Tuesday night by 9 p.m. If you have any questions, you're like, for an HR class, I really wish I would have known this. I will make sure to have all of those questions answered for you Wednesday with resources and references as needed. I just want to make sure that you guys get everything out of the class that you wanted. So your big assignment this week is your interview. Most of you, I don't want to say most, a good number of you have already completed it. I know that. But for those of you that do have your interview this week, I'm starting to get a lot of emails on the questions. I want to remind you guys that yes, it's an interview, but I want it to be a conversation more than an inquisition. We don't really need the barrel light bulb, like, what about this? What about this? What about, it's supposed to just be a discussion. We learned about labor unions, and I know that we have some here. What are your thoughts on them? How does our company deal with them? That sort of thing. Make sure you're asking questions within the scope of the person you're interviewing with. So if you are talking to someone that's the director of talent acquisition, you're probably not going to want to talk about performance reviews and succession planning because they handle recruitment. So just kind of know what they're doing. Make sure you do your due diligence before you meet with them. Research the company, research the person. You don't want to ask them something that you could have found in a 2-second Google search. How many employees does this company have? How long have you been in human resources? You should know some of these things. A couple of questions that I like to start. I read your LinkedIn bio. Can you just verify your scope so I understand exactly what it is you do in our human resources department, just to make sure that you actually are on track? Another one is, what were your greatest accomplishments in your role as HR? What are you most proud of accomplishing? That's a nice way to phrase it. What are your priorities for next year? These are all good questions to kind of see where the conversation is going to go. And then honestly, most of you are talking to your company. Ask questions about your company. We learned about a 9-box model. Does our company use that? How do we slot people for high potential, high performance programs? Do we have high potential, high performance programs? Who's involved in those? How are they selected? Whatever it is that you're interested in that the person also has scope in. A number of you have also asked me, how many questions should you ask? You should have a 30-minute meeting, maybe an hour if you are really lucky. Some of you are going to get through 5 questions. Some of you will get through 15. It really depends on how open you are and how open the person you're interviewing is. As far as the transcript, I want a list of specifically what you asked them and then their responses, but you don't need to type in word for word everything that was said. I just am trying to get an idea of what did they say to you, so I know what happened. You also need to include their full name, their email, their phone number, and their position in the interview thing. I do not usually reach out to people, but I have in the past reached out to people in the interview. And it's usually for issues of academic integrity, which I'm sure no one in this class will have, but I do need that information. If you don't have it, you will lose points, even if I have no intention of reaching out, which I usually do not. But I have had to in the past. So you can see that is number 4, name, title, scope, and contact information. Contact information, I mean email and phone number. Okay, you can see the bullets in here. I am not looking for a lot of content. This doesn't need to be a 20-page paper. It very easily could be. It does not have to be. So the overview of what they do, this could be bulleted, and locations worldwide, you don't need to tell me In Pittsburgh, they do this with this many employees. In Japan, they do this with this many employees. I'm just kind of looking for like countries they're in, generic overview, so I have an idea of the company. Culture with mission and vision, again, these can be bullet points. I just need to know what you're addressing. A deeper review of the company from an HR perspective, looking at hiring, compensation, employee management, diversity, and performance appraisal. You work here or you're familiar with it. That's why you chose the company. So I want you to do a deeper dive than just what I could find doing a Google search. Okay. You're doing the interview. So you're going to be using your personal experience. You can talk about personal communications. Like I asked my boss about this communications. You can use Glassdoor. You can use the company website. But what I don't want to see is a really generic, really shallow, deeper review, hence the word deeper. So use a couple different sources. Your own knowledge is acceptable here, but not the only reference. Comparison of the two largest competitors' HR strategy. Okay, so how do we identify the competitors? Well, maybe you go product competitors, but more realistically, if you guys were to leave your company, where would you go work? Would it be for a product competitor, or would you just look for another place that had a like role? So for my position as a professor, I could go to another university as a professor, or I could go into a senior learning and development role at a company. So when you look at the largest competitors, if you are an engineer, as an example, the largest engineer employers in the Milwaukee area are Rockwell Automation, Johnson Controls, and GE. So even if those three companies don't make the same thing, and they don't, you might work for one or the other because they are the largest employer of engineers. So competitor can be for the kind of role that you have or the product. Just let me know how you chose them. And then you're going to want to look at how they manage their HR strategy. And I tell you here, you're going to want to look at things like Glassdoor and Indeed because you're looking for differences in culture and compensation, and that's going to be hard to find on like their company websites. All right, and then you get into the interview stuff. The last one, number 6, is based on your interview and research. Finalize a company analysis and recommendations. So this is where I would really like the bulk of this paper to be, in depth of thought, not necessarily length of content. So you realize that you do all this analysis and your company actually pays a little better than average, but employees really don't like working there. Hypothetically, maybe they could pull some salary back and start doing things in engagement and benefits and total rewards, flex pay, telecommuting, and that sort of thing. That's the kind of stuff I'm looking for in this number 6 section. Based on what you've learned in our class, what the competitors are doing, what you have experienced in your company, what could be done, should be done better. That's it. That's all you have. Then you have a couple of discussions. You are going to start getting your finalized Excel form. You will, in whatever assignment that I grade last, which will probably be this HR overview and interview assignment, it will say in the comments, final Excel form, and that will have your final grade when you scroll all the way down. Those will be done sometime week 11, obviously, being as you're not even turning this in until this weekend. Everything is graded now except the performance assignment that you turned in last night and the HR overview and interview. A couple of you had not finished up all of your peer posts, so the post that had 2 peer replies is also, it was only graded if I had seen your 2 peer posts by Friday. I think at 2 o'clock is when I did that in the afternoon. But literally everything else is graded. So if you're like, wait, I don't have a grade for my selection assignment or my compensation assignment, you're going to want to go check that you actually submitted that, because I had no assignments left other than performance assignments when I was grading this weekend. So that's it. We are almost done. I hope you enjoyed HR and you learned some stuff about it. And again, that discussion question for next week, because you're not going to get a video next week, is just final HR takeaways, debriefs on a big scale, and anything you wish we would have covered. I'll make sure to get you those answers. If it's just a response where I can just be like, yes, then I'll just do that. Or if it's something where like, here's the link to that, here's the content for that. I don't want you guys to have any lingering questions about HR. I think that's it for our class. And yeah, if you have any questions, you know how to email or text me. This weekend is pretty busy with putting together stuff for finals and grading and doing that sort of stuff. So I will not most likely have my email with me. So you're going to want to text me if you have questions this weekend. And this weekend, so Friday as well, you're going to want to text me because I'm not going to have email up most of Friday because my stack of grading is quite large. And that's it. It's also week 10, so you got the email from the registrar telling you to do the end of course survey. I honestly use those to figure out how to redesign the class for next time. So the comments are really where you're going to want to tell me what worked out. For example, I cut out about 15 discussions and crammed them together. Like privacy used to be one discussion and safety used to be one discussion, and I pushed those together because students were like, it's a lot of discussions and assignments. I also put some of those break weeks in there and before larger assignments, and I'm curious if that worked out or if you now feel crunched at the end, especially because I had to do that mid-course move of assignments just for how I felt the flow of the class was going. So any comments would be helpful, positive and negative. And remember, I can't ask you any questions, so try to be clear if you're like, I wish I would have understood this part or this part more. And then tell me what you do like so I don't change that stuff. If you're like, that compensation assignment was really helpful. I never realized that motivation went with whatever your thoughts are, you know what they are. So please take a minute to do those. With the grad classes, the response rate is usually under 20%, so it's very small. So when I redesign classes, I'm going with that really small percentage of feedback and what I thought was working. So most of you, they're like, yeah, the class was fine. Don't take the time to comment. So if you could take the time to let me know, yeah, the class is fine, that would really be helpful. Especially if there is a bullet or two that you're like, I really liked this, or this really wasn't as helpful as maybe I had hoped. That's it. All right. I think we're done. If you graduate on next week, congratulations. And if not, maybe I'll see you guys in another grad class. Bye.